So it's very inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do here, this is interesting too, because this is right out of Maryland state law. When they enacted the UCRs, they wrote in here that is the fundamental objective of the Maryland UCR program is to inform the governor, the legislature, other governmental officials, and the public as to the nature, magnitude, and trends of the crime problem in Maryland.
That's what we're trying to do here today.
That's very good.
That's what we need to do in this community because it's that bad. Let me ask you, as we're moving along here, do we have enough police officers in Salisbury?
You know, that's a very good question. And but before I answer that, let me just go through this, what these uniform crime reports consist of.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the UCRs are Part 1 crimes. That's what we look at. Part 2 crimes are like white-collar crimes. But Part 1 crimes consist of violent crimes and property crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, violent crimes, in order of magnitude, is murder would be obviously the most violent. Then you have rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. So these are the 4 categories of violent crime. And then you have categories of property crime, which is breaking or entering, larceny theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. So those are your basic breakdown of the UCRs. Now, what I did here in the year 2007 is I took all of the violent crime. I got my information right from the FBI website, and anyone can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Table 8, and then you can verify these numbers. We looked at a category that the FBI distinguishes of 25 to 50,000 population. So that's where Salisbury falls, because we're about 27,000 population. It's an estimate based on the Census Bureau. So based on that 27,000, we are in a category with 741 like-sized cities across the entire United States of America, and there's 741 of those. When we look at the violent crime in our city compared to the other cities, and of course adjusted for population, we find that Salisbury is the 9th most violent city in the country out of 741 cities.
What year?
This was 2007. We were number 9. Now, I was able to run the numbers for last year. They come out, they're a little time lag, so they came out in October. I ran the numbers for 2008, Joe. Out of 741 cities in 2008. Now, remember 2007 we were number 9.
Number 9.
So 2008, guess what number we are?
Where are we at?
We're number 2.
No.
Yes. We are the 2nd most violent city in the country. We are number 2 in 2008. These are based on the FBI statistics.
That's just unbelievable.
We are behind a city called Chester, Pennsylvania, and I understand that's in the suburb of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And they are number 1, we are number 2. Now there's more bad news, Joe. In 2009, according to the city police, we are 10% higher than we were this time in 2008.
What are we going to do?
You asked a question earlier, and let me address that right now. You said, the question was, do we have enough police officers?
Yes.
Now, there's 2 statistics that you can look at when we're looking at the police officers. And the first number that you want to look at is the number of police officers that you have for your population. Mm-hmm. Now, let's look at this like you have a restaurant. If you own a restaurant and you have some waiters, servers, and then you have tables, how many servers can take care of how many tables? And I think that's the question whenever you're in the restaurant industry. I think you have a little background
and they're
in that.
done that.
Yeah. So what I have here in this first table, we're looking at Salisbury here. We look at the population and we look at the the population and the number of badged or sworn officers is 87. So we have 87 sworn officers. We have 28,000 population. So this comes out to about 327 people per officer. It was in the city of Salisbury.
May I interrupt? I want to know this question. I'm sure people are going to ask, or may not think of even asking this question. But of the 87 officers, how many of them are on the street? Do you have any idea of that?
No.
I know there's a whole third floor of that police department that have badges, and some are working on computer tech guys, and they're actually police officers. So, forgive me, I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody to hear.
That's a good question, but the only thing I can really report accurately, I try to withhold my opinions and just report the facts. And
Thank
these
you.
are facts, and these are right out of the Maryland UCRs.
Mhm.
And they publish the number of sworn officers for these cities. And you can see that we have one officer for every 327 people.
Mhm.
Now, the question was, do we have enough officers? Well, you know, honestly, it looks like we're a little light. You know, right here, like, let's get Berlin here. So Berlin, we're at, let's follow Berlin. It looks like we have, was that 18? No, I'm sorry.
13. 18, you're right.
Yeah, but move it over 378. So there in Berlin, there's one officer for every 378
There you go.
people. But on the other hand, let's find something up close. Princess Anne, 200 and what's that number here? 276.
Yeah.
So in Princess Anne, we're looking at one officer for every 276 people, population. Okay. So does Salisbury have enough officers for population? It would appear that we're middle of the road. So here's what I see as the problem. If I look at another category, and that is the number of police officers per Part 1 crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get back to the restaurant analogy.
Right.
Okay, if you have one server and they're serving 15 tables, you get so-so service.
Right.
But if you have one server serving 30 tables, you're going to expect that you won't be able to get the check. You're going to wait for the order. Your food's they're not going to come follow up during the meal like they should. So you're not going to have the service that you should. So it's interesting that when we look at this statistic here, we find that there are 33 Part 1 offenses per officer. That's high.
Really?
That's high because if you look at the rest of the state, and I've looked at the rest of the country, and we're way up there. If you look at Annapolis here, they're 18.
Wow.
So picture this, if you have one server serving 18 tables,
Right.
you're going to go a whole lot better service than one server serving 33 tables.
Right.
And I really think that this is the underlying problem that we have here in Salisbury, is that there's so much crime that the officers cannot adequately service the population that are being victimized by these Part 1 crimes.
Right.
You keep in mind when you have a Part 1 crime, you have to respond to the report, you have to file a report, then you have to file a report, then you have to determine whether it's a Part 1 crime, which they do. Then you should follow up with an investigation. Then that information should be turned over to the state's attorney.
Right.
Then that information, that state's attorney should prosecute, and that requires that the police officer be there present in court.